Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to this Patrons video, which is I'm making it for Eli as part of their very first custom monthly music review. And if we switch over to here, we've got the track full screen. If we take it away, this is by Official Higuedan dism, if I'm not mistaking that. This song is titled Apoptosis. It's a very fancy name. I'm not actually sure what apoptosis means, so I'm going to Google that real quick. Okay, so apoptosis is the process of programmed cell death. So that's something I didn't know, but now I know. Thank you. Thank you for that. So we're going to listen through this track from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go. Some really frenetic stuff going on with the synths here. The pads on the sides are really relaxing though, how they swirl around in the stereo field. Great clarity to the vocals here with a very familiar chord progression. Does this have captions? Does it have English captions? Oh, there is! I'm really happy with the vocal range here. I think that it really suits the track. Having a higher ranged vocalist can be an absolute godsend because like in rock and metal, for example, a lot of the emphasis is on the low mids with like the bass guitars and sometimes even the electrics, as well as the drums. So if you can avoid that by having a singer on top and like maybe have them alternate with a lead guitar, it's great for arrangement purposes, you know? Great use of trap samples with like the clicky kind of hi-hat on there, you know? Wasn't expecting that though. I wasn't expecting that chord change there. It kind of departed from a sort of you traditionally used to when you have that kind of very typical kind of neo kind of soulish kind of movement there with the chords that we had in the verse there. It's just great to have something a little bit unpredictable. I am paying attention to the lyrics as well. Farewell definitely comes closer to us before we notice. Really adept piano playing here, by the way, if you can hear that. Parallel minor chord there. That's something I talk about, and I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this. So like in music, there's chords that are within a thing called a key. There are a set of chords, and chords are just when you play more than one note at the same time. They're sets of, and so there's these keys which are sets of chords, and you have like a rule for the ones you use if you start with a, like let's just say we have a C note. So you'd make a C major chord, and then if you start with a C major, the next one's going to be D minor and then E minor, and you go through the musical alphabet, which is A to G and then A again. And you go C, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, B diminished typically, although some people will make that a minor and kind of make it a bit spicy, or they'll go for a minor 7 flat 5, which kind of smooths out the roughness of the diminished chord, or the diminished triad, or the flat fifth. But what they'll do in music like this, just to make it more interesting, is they'll take the chords you're supposed to use and they'll change them. So they'll make it, instead of a major, they'll do the minor, which is the parallel version of it. And that's what they're doing here to kind of mess with the listener's expectations. It sounds kind of funky because you know it's the right note, like for the scale itself. Like you know that there's like, for instance, a G note, but you're expecting it to be happy and then it's sad and you're like, what? It's just really clever stuff, as long as it's used in a way that is musically sound. Otherwise, it can come across as a little bit pretentious. Great use of head voice. And I can hear the lead guitar parts. They must be going through a guitar synth. I think that's a fantastic choice there. Guitar synths are fascinating, man. Great job having the drums coming at this point. And the bass guitar coming in with a phenomenal tone there. Like, the studio production on this track is absolutely sensational. Everything is so clear and easy to tell in the mix. The candles are increasing on the cake while the portion we can eat is decreasing. I think that's an incredibly telling line. Great to have a look. It's great to have the bassist as well, not only playing the root notes of the chord, but they're also exploring the fretboard and working within the modes of the chords that are within the track. The drummer is pocketing, they're playing relatively conservatively, but I think it suits the track a lot. That was a major parallel, by the way. Usually you have a minor chord there, and the major makes it very uplifting and like things are sparkly, which is helped as well by the use of the sparkly synth there, as if we're ascending into the stars. It's a beautiful track for these different reasons. It's talking about different generations and how we age and the process of life and how we're connected to everything else and how it just happens, you know? Really soulful solo there. Absolutely no need to... How do I describe it? They're not overplaying, that's for sure, but they're playing in a way which is still showing off their skill and musical prowess. This is an incredibly beautiful song, and it's something that I think I haven't heard before. I haven't really heard a song like this before, and I'm so glad I have. This is why I value these videos, because without them, I genuinely will not listen to this music. Not out of lack of trying, but it's just, how would you know to find this unless someone showed it to you? That is the beauty. That's the one upside of streaming, of having music as accessible as it is that you can find it if you're given it. But then, you know, also it's complicated.
れるべき時が来たもしその時は悲しまないでダーリンもう朝になるねやっと少しだけ眠れそうだよ
Ooh, is he talking about when someone passes away and how like life is a sprint and how you go through it so quickly relative to what you think it is, and then it's all just a blur and you get to the end and it's like, don't feel bad, I can rest now? Is that what we're getting at? Oh, that was deeper than I was expecting it to hit. I think that I think this is very personal for him. Yeah. I think this is very personal for him. I think this is quite... That's why they kept the camera on him, because you can tell that this is him. This is a huge song for him. I'm going to talk about that in the conclusion. Wow, man. So this is my conclusion to my SP Patrons review of Official Hige dism Apoptosis. What do I think this track is about? I think that it's commenting on our mortality, how we view life, all the things that are involved with it, our connections with people, and how it's just a flickering candle, how fragile we are, how we can take things for granted, how we can just one day not have what we thought we were going to have or what we will ever have. And it's also about accepting that just as our journey may be, like I'm 32, so I'm 32 years through my journey, there are people in their 80s and 90s and they just may not be around for much longer. And that's our life. It's just, it lasts for as long as it does. And you've got to basically find a way to come to terms with that. And it's so hard because our brains are just designed for survival. They're not designed to contemplate our own mortality. Unless we're severely unwell, and that's when you should obviously get help. But I think this track is something that the singer feels incredibly passionate about. The story that they're telling, it's their philosophical views on it. It's obviously very important to them. The vocal technique from the singer is wonderful. They've got exemplary control of their head and chest voice. They're very comfortable in front of the mic. The performance was confident. Like their head, the ornamentation, vibrato, the various vocal harmonies, etc. were absolutely gorgeous. The difference between the hook, for instance, and the quiet part of the piano at the end showcases an illustration that they understand how to emote in their performance, and they know how to change their delivery to suit the mood, but also of not only the music but the lyrics. And they're incredibly mature for their age, and I'm really proud of them. It's very difficult to talk about, but I think it's something that's absolutely worth telling. Yeah, it's beautiful vocals, wonderful song. I think the track at 6.5 minutes is long. Usually most tracks are 2 to 4 minutes, but I had no issues whatsoever listening through this because I think that it was a slow dance. It was taking you through a broader concept than a song about struggling in a relationship or dealing with a breakup or, kind of stuff that you might deal with on an everyday basis that people can relate to on a more casual level. This is a huge thing to discuss, a difficult topic to do it with a sense of sophistication like they have here, but they managed to nail it. I think there were various chord progressions and changes and additions in this almost ballad format that we had throughout, but I think it's just wonderful how we managed to add to it. We had all sorts of instruments. We had the bass, the piano, the vocals, the guitar, the drums, different synth parts, etc., like synth pads at the beginning and all that kind of stuff. If we go back to the start, this is very kind of unusual. It's very kind of trippy and almost psychedelic. Like we're going through our lives in the space of it's like we're in a dream or something, contemplating the totality of our existence. I just think it's wonderful that we start with that really kind of confronting sort of like situation of elements there, as if to challenge the listener to let them know that they're going to have a different time listening to this and they should prepare for it. If I go through each of the instruments individually, because that's easier for me to do, I think the guitar parts, with that, there was some tapping or lead parts that they were doing. The guitar wasn't as much of a dominant rhythmic instrument as it would potentially be in other situations. They had articulations in the higher fretboard range, which were very sparkly and clean to listen to, and I think the lowest they really got was in that solo section. I could be wrong. Like, yeah, no, they didn't. Basically, they had the guitar just in the upper range most of the time. They had synth pads filling in the mid-range. They had the bass line that was nice and present in the mix because I think of a lack of guitar. The bass line was wonderful, and not only did the root notes of the chord progressions that were instantiated by the synth pads playing the chords, but then, as well as the piano, but then we also had the bass line just kind of working around the fretboard to be more colorful there. The drums, which came in later on after a little bit of sort of like sampled work at the start, you know, they were fantastic. It was great to have those eighth chord note accents with the eighth note groove on the hi-hat, all right, but then also to have occasional 16th chops in there to kind of like spice things up a little bit was fantastic as well. But the drummer was thoroughly supportive. The keys in the other chord parts were predominantly chord extensions. Sometimes there were parallel majors or minors, but ultimately they were sevenths as per the kind of neo-soul, kind of jazzy orientation to this track. There were lots of trippy sounding synths as well there, which were very kind of fun to hear, not only because they were unusual textures, but because when they weren't unusual, they were so pristine and sparkly and cuddly and all that kind of stuff. And it was almost like it was filling in the marvel, the wonderment of the stuff that the story was talking about. So I was stoked with that overall. I think the sound design was fantastic. The arrangement was wonderful. There were no things crowding certain aspects of the frequency spectrum. There was a solo session, and outside of the the verse and chorus parts, with a really interesting change in backing between the choruses and verses that I didn't expect the first chord of that hook as well, which was fantastic, even though I was very familiar with how the verse was done. And it's okay, because that's a common one. That's a common chord progression, and it works for a reason. It's very fashionable at the moment. But yeah, it's wonderful. Overall, I think all the instruments that were within the mix were very helpful. I got nothing but love for them. I think in addition to all this, what we had going on with like the actual motif itself, if I talk about how it sounded overall, I think the track was trying to, how do I say it? It kind of reminds me a little bit of someone trying to write a song that will be accessible and approachable to people, but also offering lots of little Easter eggs to kind of really like let you know, hey, this is more than just your typical single. This is like my magnum opus, basically. This seems like a huge song for them. It was more than just your traditional major and minor chords. You had parallel majors and minors, which instantiated a sense of unpredictability to it. Like they were trying to play with your emotions and get you to understand. I think what the accompaniment was trying to get you to do was understand and appreciate that this is an important message and story they're trying to tell that appeals to everyone, and you shouldn't look at life the way you're doing necessarily. It's about keeping an open-minded perspective and being persuaded by different ways of looking at things so that you don't get notched in tunnel vision and forget that life is passing you by whilst you're in that hole unaware of it. I think the theme is glorious, but also it's grounding in that it forces you to look at the stars above and really acknowledge your own oneness with the universe, and it's fantastic. Wonderful song. Wonderful use of time, no filler, not a note out of place. The studio production, recording, mixing and mastering is exemplary. It's commercial grade, major label grade. I'm really happy with the way the vocals are nice and present in the mix. Pianos, keys, synths, guitar, bass, vocal, drums, etc. They're all nicely notched in their own certain positions of the frequency spectrum. In the stereo field there, there was a bit of side chaining on the kicks to the bass, but it was a very clean mix. Like the EQing is just second to none. There were nice little bits of reverb and delay and other effects, and a little bit of kind of like maybe vocoder-ish work on the guitar parts to get them sound sort of like video gaming or synthy. There was definitely some post-production there. I think as well at the start with like the synth pad going from left to right, etc. There was a bit of panning and like a post-production attention paid there as well to kind of get you to kind of oscillate around your headphones there. There was dynamic range to this recording as well, which I appreciate, so things weren't just loud all the time. There was variations, especially how it came down at the end, for that quieter, more sort of like vulnerable part. And finally, you have, you know, like the limiting compression. It was nice and loud without pumping. I mean, all in all, this is an incredible track. I'm glad I had the opportunity to review it. This is my review of Official Dan Dism hang on, I've missed something, haven't I? Official Higuedan dism. Apoptosis, should I say. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go check out the various social medias and a YouTube page. And stay cool, stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SP Patreon review. Spiderhands out.